Well, today I'm semi-reviewing The Universe Maker by A.E. Van Vogt. It's a science fiction novel from the early 1950s. This A.E. Van Vogt character was a sci-fi author, I would say kind of in the pulp science fiction arena, as a lot of them were back then, because this was kind of back before science fiction was respected like it would be in the later decades. So it definitely is not the kind of sci-fi that I typically read. I tend to prefer what I call the golden age, which is the sci-fi from the 60s and 70s in terms of novels, and then in terms of television shows and movies, the 80s and 90s. This book was published in the early 1950s. And the reason I call it a semi-review is because I didn't finish the book. And I've done these before where I still review the book even though I didn't finish it. I'm not going to be able to put the green sticker of achievement on the binding because I didn't finish it. And I actually got about halfway through it. I almost got to the cigarette ad in the middle of the book. The novel was published in the 70s. It's back in print, and this paperback copy is from the 70s, but the story is from the early 50s, and it's about a Korean War vet. I'll actually read the back for you, and then I'll get into my own version of the plot. A year ago, Morton Cargill had accidentally killed a girl in an auto crash. Now she was back. Damn it all. Now she was back and announced that the Intertime Society for Psychological Adjustments, which Cargill had never even heard of, had condemned him to death. Somehow Cargill was transported into the far future to await his death. But when he escaped from the Society's execution chamber, his problems had just begun. For three conflicting groups, the floaters, who lived in the air, the tweeners, who dreamed of world conquest, and the shadow men, sinister supermen who had no visible substance, were hunting for him for use in their own desperate schemes. And if they didn't get him, the Intertime Society would. If it sounds a little confusing as a plot, that's because it kind of is, and it's even more confusing when you actually get into the text. So this Cargill, he's a Korean War veteran. He comes back from the Korean War. He goes right into a bar. He chats up this woman. They leave in her car, and he's driving the car, and he crashes it, and it's a drunk driving accident, and he leaves the scene of the accident, and she dies. But instead of being apprehended by the authorities of the 1950s, he's apprehended by the authorities of the future. He's sent into the future because time travel exists in this world or in this timeline. And he gets transported to this what looks like just a hotel room with one glass wall that's like a one-way glass, and it's like an execution chamber that looks like just a hotel room. And he's told over a speaker that it's necessary for him to die to right basically the way they put it is kind of the generational trauma, the ancestral trauma of this woman's death, to make things right for her descendants. Because in future psychology, it's believed that anything bad that happened to your ancestors in the past, the trauma of that gets carried on in you. And not just in terms of like generational trauma that we know of, where if like your grandfather was a drunk, then you might be a drunk too because your dad was a drunk, that kind of thing, or any number of things like that. It's actually like almost like it's written into your DNA or something. It's very similar to things I've heard about like Dianetics and Scientology, and I almost wonder if this Van Vogt guy actually knew L. Ron Hubbard, because they would have been getting their start around the same time in the 40s and 50s as pulp sci-fi authors. I mean, and this guy he comes across to me very much as a pulp author. I probably won't read any more of his because I'm not a big fan of his writing style. It's kind of confusing. There are a lot of these soliloquies that kind of go nowhere. He's not very good at description, which I'll get into in a little bit here. So I wonder if maybe he knew Hubbard, because a lot of what's said in this book, really, it's not exactly the same as Scientology, but it echoes a lot of Scientology's philosophy, like the idea that things from the past can affect your psyche in these weird ways. And so, anyway, he manages to escape this execution room. He gets busted out by I believe it's the tweeners, or at least a group of tweener dissidents who are fighting the Shadow Men, and the Shadow Men are the ones who are in control of everything. Like it says, they're literally Shadow Men. They kind of pull all the strings. So anyway, he gets rescued by these people, but being kind of the arrogant dick that he is, and that's another problem with this book, is that I really don't particularly like the protagonist. It's not just that he, killed someone in a drunk driving accident. It's that he's impulsive. He's kind of casually arrogant. He's not somebody that you want to get behind. You don't really care what happens to him, frankly. So he's not really written sympathetically enough to care what happens to this guy. So anyway, he and again, like I said, arrogance. He gets away from these people who rescued him because he's worried about being beholden to them. So he escapes them with no idea what's out there. This is like a future world that he knows nothing about. So it would have been much smarter to stay with them, but he had to go off on his own. And he gets kidnapped by the Floaters, this group of tribalistic, kind of semi-anarchist nomads who live in the sky. They have these solar-powered flying machines. They're not well described, as a lot of this stuff in this book is not, which is a problem I have with this guy's writing style. I visualize them as kind of like blimps, but again, there's no knowing. They just are not well described. He does basically make it clear that they're solar powered. So take from that what you will. And they fly at their best during the day, and then at night they sink down, and usually these people land and they go fishing and stuff, and they live off the land. And this father and daughter team kidnap him and basically enslave him as their cook in the kitchen of this flying machine. But over time, the girl kind of develops a thing for Cargill, and they go off together in their own flying machine and live together basically as a couple, as a married couple, even though they don't actually officially get married by the Floaters rules. But anyway, but then the thing is, the Shadows have their hands in everything, and they are actually the ones who give the Floaters their equipment and their ships and their supplies through kind of these kind of tribal leaders. They talk to the Floaters, and then or they talk to the Shadow people, and then the Shadow people give these leaders the supplies, and then the leaders distribute it to the lower ranking Floaters as they see fit. So it's almost like this kind of feudalistic, wannabe anarchistic society. And so, of course, because of that, the Shadows find out what's going on with Cargill, and they capture him again, and they send him right back, not just to that same hotel room, but to the very same point in time, to be executed again, so that this woman's great granddaughter or whoever or whatever can be healed of this ancestral trauma, which kind of a ridiculous concept. I just can't take that concept seriously. And fair enough, if I had gone on with the novel, it might have been admitted, exposed that the shadow people or the Intertime Society, that that this is a false quackery of an idea, and that it's not legitimate, and that or maybe it's a farce or a smoke screen for some other motive. But the problem is, I just didn't care enough. This novel was just so hard to get through. Part of it was that it was kind of archaically written. It was like written in the 1950s. But then again, I've read novels from even longer ago than that that really don't affect me in that way. I can read it. It's written in this kind of timeless way where, it could have been written yesterday or last year, even though it was written, almost 100 years ago. There are novels like that. This one just isn't one of them. I just had such a hard time getting through this book, and oftentimes I like to plow through and finish a novel even if I don't like it, because it's kind of like you're halfway through. If you finish it, it feels like a waste of time, but at least you finished it. Whereas if you, like I'm about to do, if you quit halfway through, then you're saving some time, but then it feels even more like a waste of time because you didn't even finish the book. But I have so many books to read at home, and I have a few more of this guy's novels, and I might actually give all of them away, because this one just left such a bad taste for me that I just don't know if there are certain authors that just don't do it for you, and I think this guy is one of them. And I have other sci-fi authors I'm very fond of, but this guy's just cut from a certain cloth. It's just not my kind of sci-fi. So I hope this helps for anyone who's interested in reading this guy's novels. I don't want to badmouth him too much, because there's probably some people who would love him, but this is just my opinion. Or if you're just generally into kind of science fiction and like the different categories of sci-fi and like what kind of works for some people and doesn't work for other people, like what is to some people's taste and not to other people's tastes. I hope you enjoyed the commentary. It's not really, I don't know if it's so much of a review, maybe I should call it a commentary on this novel, but thanks for watching. I like these kind of long form videos. I've been doing a lot of shorts, but it's kind of nice to go back to my roots and do long form videos. This is an AI-free video. I can't stand what AI is doing to YouTube. I mean, this video may not be as smooth as an AI video, but it's real. And I'm so nervous about what AI is doing to entertainment in general. But you can pretty much get a promise from me that I'm not going to use AI in any of my videos, at least not in anything like that influences the creativity. I think that's where AI goes wrong. People start using it for creativity, and it's not really meant for that. So, but enough of my blabbing. I'll let you go now. Subscribe to Captain Unusual, like and comment. I'd love to hear what you guys' favorite sci-fi author is, and maybe who your least favorite sci-fi author is. A lot of people would probably say L. Ron Hubbard. I've only read half of Battlefield Earth. That was probably the one where there's the biggest waste of time, because that's a 1,000-page book, and I got like halfway through it and then I stopped. So that was a big sacrifice of my time. But again, very similar to Van Vogt. These two write very similarly, and they're from the same era, and they're in the kind of the same genre of pulp sci-fi as opposed to more serious kind of literature sci-fi. So thanks for watching. Catch you in the next video.